So just by my introduction, my name is Abiodun Odunuga. I'm the project manager for Nigerian France Tech Initiative. The Nigerian France Tech Initiative was launched by the Embassy of Nigeria in Paris under the leadership of Our Excellency, who is also joining us today, Dr. Modupe Irele. And the objective of the initiative is to be able to strengthen the tech ecosystem between France and Nigeria and ensure that stakeholders work together to be able to provide benefits for startups and young entrepreneurs. So without further ado, I would give the floor right now to Our Excellency Dr. Modupe Irele, who is the founder for the Nigerian France Tech Initiative, to give opening remarks, and then we'll go right into the business of the day after the introduction of others. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Okay, thank you very much, Abiodun. I actually thought that everybody else was going to give their introduction and I would talk, but fine, it's okay. Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be meeting with you, and also a shout out to all our participants. Let me say a special welcome to Uyoyo, Zino, Edosio, and who's from African Development Bank, Mr. Martin Labbe, who's the International Trade Center representative, Mr. Tosin Faniro-Dada from the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, and Mr. Kasim Sodangi from the National Information Technology Development Agency. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, welcome to all our participants. Let me tell you first a little bit about Nigeria-France Technology Initiative. Briefly, we started this last year, October 2nd. That was when it was launched, 2019. And it was launched primarily to be a support to emerging tech entrepreneurs and also established tech entrepreneurs. So anybody in the technology field arena, so that they could have support in accessing funds. They could have support in growing their business, not just nationally, but also on the international level. We also thought that, you know, sometimes you enter competitions, you win grants, and then after a while, there's a sense of where do I go next? Where do I go from here? So it was also supposed to be a support for entrepreneurs to get access to a nurturing environment outside, and nurturing environment also means access to things that would improve efficiency and expertise. So, and of course, at the end of all this, we're all there to make money for both yourselves and to improve the country. So that was my own impetus. Of course, we all realize now the great impact that technology has in all our lives, whether it's in our homes, whether it's in our industries, whatever it is. And people are out there and they're just brimming with ideas. And so how do we get them out there? How do we give them a place to make their voices heard? And after the launch in October last year, through the help of Abiodun, who was the field person, let me say, we were able to start organizing for 2020 a number of initiatives. We were going to start this year with the Sanofi pharmaceutical event. They were going to have a competition for various technical startups, technology startups, so that they could then be put on the international platform at the Viva Tech event that was to hold in June 2020 this year. From that place, a number of people would have been chosen and they would have been supported financially and represented at the Viva Tech. Also, we had reached out to Lagos State to say that, look, come and support this so that anybody, any of the bright organizations that come to you, you can let them know about the event. And we also let them know through that medium that in June was the Africa-France Summit, which is held every year. But this year they were focusing on sustainable cities, and they were focusing also on young emerging, established technology firms that they could promote. The event was supposed to take place in Bordeaux in June. I think it was June 4th to 6th. And a lot of work had gone into it. A lot of applications had been submitted. And I was even told that, I think we're expecting almost 1,000 or so, and they were going to support 70. And they had said that of all the ones that they had been receiving, the best were coming from Nigeria, and that they've realized that in all the competitions that they've been given all over the world, Nigerians are always, you can always find 4 or so Nigerians in the top 10 that have competed. So they were really looking forward to having applicants from Nigeria. And they also looked forward to having an equal participation between men and women. So they were all gung-ho for that. So that was Sanofi in Nigeria. Viva Tech had also been working with us to work with NITDA. NITDA was going to help to sponsor some people to that event so that they could have an opportunity to reach out to many people. And I don't know whether you all know about Viva Tech, but Viva Tech is perhaps the greatest in France technology exhibition. So you had people from all over the world, and we were going to have about, how many minutes was it, Abiodun? About 15 minutes where you could reach out to talk. You were given access for that length of time to talk to everybody that was at that pavilion, and they're expecting people in the hundreds in the tens of hundreds. So it was going to be a good event. And also they were going to, after that, go on tours to about 10 different companies so that you could see companies in action. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the year, we then had the very unpleasant and unexpected and uninvited COVID-19 spread. And what happened? All those events were put on hold. Now, this is the message I want to give to you. If you take nothing away today, this is what I want you to take away. They were put on hold, but they were not stopped. Events can be put on hold, but ideas and opportunities are never put on hold. So you have that opportunity, you have that opportunity to continue with those ideas. And what we want to do in NIFTY at this period of time is to ensure that the conversation continues. The conversation continues, the opportunities continue, and to have you feel free to continue to reach out and say, these are the ideas we have, this is what we want to do, how can we do it, and so on and so forth. So, you know, I'm almost finishing, but there are 1 or 2 things that I want us to really also grasp. And that COVID-19, disaster per excellence, but it poses new imperatives on us in Nigeria. It poses the imperatives of finding solutions within Nigeria ourselves. We can see that right now, every single country is kind of like almost an island in itself. You can't travel around, so you have to look for the solutions within yourselves. The value chains, the chains for commercial chains have been broken. So you need to look inwards and say, well, this is an opportunity for us to do things ourselves. And so what are the areas? Health. Health is critical. This is a time for research. In the past, maybe we didn't pay too much attention to research, but now we can see the importance of research. And a lot of people are interested in doing research. During the launch, we had people in that area come in, genetics and so on. So those are opportunities there. There's opportunity in education. All the schools now, they can't meet, so they're all turning to online learning. And they're finding that online learning is not the same thing as classroom learning. So this is a time for people who are interested in that area to look at how they can come up with technologies in that area for the pedagogy, the teaching of students online, interaction online. Entertainment, of course, we've always been known for entertainment, but there are areas that people possibly not even thought about. For example, I was listening to the television today, watching television, and one of the things that struck me was that footballers are no longer going to be able to rely on mass events, for which are the events that fund their very high salaries. When you can't get people together to buy tickets and so on, you're going to have to find out new ways of coming together. So that's also opportunities. Of course, the economy. Countries like France rely a lot on tourism, hospitality, and so on. What are the things that we can do in those areas? So that we're not limited just to Nigeria, where we have a platform that is international. And then rural banking, all the things that we have. Banking in Nigeria is very advanced, but we have a lot has happened just looking at when the lockdown was lifted, people rushing out and so on. How can we extend services to places that are not so accessible otherwise physically? And of course, we have to also think of things like, what does it mean, social distance, interaction now? Interaction is going to be different, at least for some time. So how do we handle interaction with ourselves in future? So today we have here people who can talk to those issues for you, people who can talk to you about, we can help you with funding. Oh, we don't have funds, but this and this and this is what we do have. We can give you ideas of what to do. We can give you ideas of how we support people, how you can come to us or to other organizations that are similar to us. And they can help you, one, access funds, access potential and credible partners to enhance your visibility. They can provide you with guidance. And NFTI, we ourselves were here. When you're talking with Abiodun, he always has access to the embassy, to the economic desk, and fairly often to me also. So, you know, this is something that we're all very passionate about. And I think the time has come for Nigeria and for Africa on the whole. As I said, the conversation continues. My last word to you is a reminder that events are on hold, but ideas and opportunities are not on hold. Thank you very much. And I hope you have a very good discussion. I'm going to be kind of lurking in the background, but I have to leave soon. And I have made sure that somebody else from the embassy will be here to talk to you when I do leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Yes, events are on hold, but ideas are not on hold. Thank you so much. On that note, I need to just make a quick remark that we'll be having the representative from the African Development Bank, that's Mrs. Uyoyo, join us at the end, towards the end of the session. She was just called up for a COVID-19 urgent task, and she sent me to me on WhatsApp a few minutes ago. So she's trying to wrap up that very urgent task, and then she'll join us. And if you can see the panel, it was deliberate. For those of you who are consultant with what they do, you'll see, Tosin Faniro-Dada, who is very engaged when it comes to supporting startups on the local scene in Nigeria, especially focused on Lagos-based startups. And also we have the helicopter view, somebody who sits at the helm of affairs, also representing NITDA, the Nigerian Information Technology Development Agency, who will be talking from the national perspective also. And also we also have, obviously, Uyoyo will be joining us later on, representing the regional aspects, representing the AfDB to talk about the continental level or what engagement and potential prospects are for startups on the African level. And then we have Martin Labbe, obviously, who would be looking at the international dimension on how Nigerian and African startups can get into resources. So the only person who is not on this panel is somebody from Mars or the moon, and that's because Elon Musk didn't provide anything for us to get aboard. As far as the world is concerned, from the states to the national to the continental and to the international level, we have this panel. It can't be better than this, everybody. So I just want to let you know you have the best panel right now, and without wasting too much time, I will jump into the next aspect of the program, which is that each of the panelists, introduce themselves by themselves. And I'll start with Tosin, Faniro. Tell us who you are, tell us what you do, and then Martin, and then also Kasim after. Thank you.
Thank you, Abiodun. Can everybody hear me fine? Okay, fantastic. A pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me and looking forward to engaging with you all. My name is Tosin Faniro-Dada, as Abiodun has said, and I work for the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. Now, for people that have never heard of LSETF, which is short for Lagos Employment Trust Fund, we're a government agency and our mandate is very simple. It's to create jobs in Lagos State. Now, in terms of how we do create jobs, we do three things. We provide access to finance to micro, small, and medium businesses by giving them affordable loans at a reduced interest rate, and also requesting for social collateral. So that means that we're not requesting for land or any physical collateral. We also do capacity building for the entrepreneurs so we don't just give them the money and then we forget about them. So we do capacity building that teaches them how to run their business. And then we also have an access to market desk that look for ways for them to market their goods and services locally and internationally. Our second pillar is our employability pillar, and this is where we train people in blue-collar skills and place them in jobs. So we've done programs with UNDP, we've done programs with GIZ, and now we're doing a program with USADF. Our third pillar is innovation, which I manage. It's a set of programs called Lagos Innovates. And what we do with Lagos Innovates is to support the ecosystem. So we recognize that the ecosystem has done pretty well on its own without any government intervention. So we're very deliberate when we're designing the programs to ensure that the programs are supporting what's already on ground. In terms of what we provide to these startups, we provide access to infrastructure through our programs, but this infrastructure is already existing infrastructure. So if you think about co-working spaces, for example, a lot of startups complain that power obviously is a challenge in Nigeria. Internet, high-speed internet is a challenge, it's expensive, they can't afford it. So we partner with co-working spaces and we give these founders vouchers to go to co-working spaces and use the spaces, and then we pay the co-working spaces directly. We also have talent development programs where we train people in tech skills and place them in jobs. We have a mentorship program as well where we help people in ideation and put them through some sort of structure, through validation, proof of concept, and then a viable product. And lastly, we do not invest directly in startups, but what we do is we match make startups to investors. Now, because we have a pipeline of over 150 startups, a lot of investors reach out to us, a lot of accelerator partners reach out to us asking for, this is our scope, this is what we're interested in, we're looking for people that have raised X amount of revenue, and are looking to expand and we want to invest in them. So we will do that matchmaking for you. But beyond that, we also introduce startups to government, for example, or corporates. And in my almost 4 years at LSETF, one thing I've come to realize is, access to finance isn't everybody's problem. Some people it's just access to markets. Some people just need that connection and just need you to open that door for them. It could be B2B or B2C. So in a nutshell, that's LSETF, and that's the work that we've been doing for the past 4 years now.
Thank you so much, Tosin. Over to you, Martin.
Yes, good evening, Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here, Abiodun, this evening. I work for the International Trade Center. We are based in Geneva. My name is Martin Labbe. We are a UN agency. We are specialized in trade-related technical assistance. So all our work is just supporting SMEs, startups in emerging economies. We are mostly active in Africa. We also have activities in South Asia and in Latin America, also in the CIS in Eastern Europe. But mostly we are active in sub-Saharan Africa. And so our work is quite similar to what Tosin just described when it comes to the support we provide to startups. We also work at 3 levels. So firstly, at the level of the ecosystem with mainly ministries, Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Digital Economy increasingly also, where we support them in design of national strategies. So these can be export strategies for the IT and BPO sector. We've done that recently in Senegal, for instance. It can also be mapping the ecosystem, understanding what the players are, who are the Lagos Innovates in this country, and who are the other organizations contributing to the support of the SMEs. And so that allows decision makers in government to understand who are the main players and where more support is required to channel public funding. And it's also an excellent coordination mechanism for these business support organizations themselves to understand who are, to visualize really who are the most important players in the support. Then at the level of these intermediary organizations, traditionally we've been working with trade promotion organizations, chambers of commerce, industry associations, and because of our increased work in tech sector development, we have been working with new intermediary organizations, the next generation of business support organizations, the co-working spaces, the tech hubs, the incubators, the accelerators, so trying with these to reach out to a larger number of beneficiaries and also to have more sustainable impact, because the way we intervene in countries is through projects, and a project has a start date and an end date. So once the project activities are over, what happens? And the only way to see for us impact in the long run is when there is a partner on the ground that continues the work that has been initiated. So this year is this is a very important layer, the multiplication layer. And then we also work directly, as I said, with the startups and the SMEs in the tech sector. In my case, we are active in all sectors of the economies where we work, but the tech sector work at ITC is quite recent. For an organization that started in 1964, we have been active in the tech sector since 2010, and initially, it was in South Asia, where countries like Bangladesh and maybe Sri Lanka were asking us to work. And then we have seen since 2015 a shift, also a growing importance for the sector in many of the African countries where we're active. Many of these countries are trying to see their tech sector grow, and they don't have the advantage of Nigeria, which has this massive domestic market. And that is explaining, I think, a lot of the success stories that you have that are scaling now on the continent. Flutterwave and the likes that are able to build their domestic footprint and then expand internationally. So a lot of the startups that we work with, they have to go international from day one. And that is something we are trying to support them with. And so in terms of the tools we're using, it's a traditional toolkit. When I heard Tosin describing her approaches, I thought, okay, I don't need to present what we are doing because it's very similar. We also don't invest. It's a similar approach. And I think the toolkit, there are only so many options. And a lot of these tools actually work, because you could think that the entrepreneurs, have it all figured out, but very often they have a great idea, maybe a great innovation, a product, but then there are many, many areas where they are on shallow ground. It's impressive to see how often they are not, very, very good at doing their accounting, for instance. They lack a solid business plan, and they also have a patchy idea about how to do proper market research. So these are areas where we try to give them support, usually through training, but also a lot of one-to-one coaching, so that it's really especially adapted to their own needs. And then we also have a very big emphasis on matchmaking. So it's matchmaking between the businesses we support and potential partners, potential clients, and potential investors. With tech startups, we try to tell them you don't all have to raise, but it's very often something that they see their peers doing. So they also think, I also have to get an investor. And it's true that to scale, and especially to scale quickly, it's still the fastest way to do it. So we are also trying to prepare them for these discussions. And we have a network of companies that we introduce them to. We also use publications and conferences to disseminate this information. We had, for instance, last year in November, we've released a publication on business models for tech hubs, which is looking at how do these 600 plus tech hubs in Africa, how are they able to actually ensure the sustainability? A lot of them are now hurting. I think it's probably also the case in Lagos and in other countries, in other cities in Nigeria. But we hear from the tech hubs that we work with that they're really struggling because they have no business right now. The tenants, the companies that are coming usually every day to the co-working space are not there. The events they organize are not taking place. And there's only so much they can do digital. So we try to prepare them for post-COVID with some ideas on how to offer new services. We also have a publication with Avasant, an IT consultancy that is coming out at the end of this month that looks at 11 African markets for IT and BPO services, and also interesting verticals for our startups. So this is in a nutshell what we are doing.
Thank you so much, Martin. Mr. Kasim, over to you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. On behalf of the Director General of NITDA, thank you very much for your opening, Your Excellency. It was very enlightening to hear the approach and the platform you've created for partnerships to see that we could help build this ecosystem. I work for the National Information Technology Development Agency. It is the apex regulator and development sort of agency for the government for the development and facilitation of technology in Nigeria. Basically, the agency is responsible for putting together policies, regulations, plans, ideas, platforms to drive, information technology broadly, and then also responsible for the innovation ecosystem and nurturing that ecosystem, to become, what we sort of envision that it becomes a major plank of our economy, and then it facilitates this diversification story that Nigeria has been trying to achieve, for a while. I'll say quickly that we have a thriving ecosystem. Lagos is quote unquote booming for the current challenges. Abuja is some spot. There's some activity in Kaduna and pockets in the west, but we know that the opportunity is uneven and it's unequal. We know that we have more talents across the country. There's need to connect more people to technology. There's need to drive things, if you like, lower than where the ecosystem is. There's work to be done below the ecosystem in terms of being able to work through digital literacy, to build skills, to deepen the skills market and the capacities, of entrepreneurs with knowledge, data, and so on and so forth. And then there is also the need to nurture and support the ecosystem that already exists. Like he mentioned, the speaker before me, the challenge with the hubs are hurting right now. So we also have programs and programs particularly to support that kind of that band of activity, to see that they continue to thrive, as it is now recognized that they're a major aspect of the value chain for delivering innovation and value in Nigeria. So I'll say you put it into two big boxes. One, the activities supporting the current ecosystem by just ensuring sustainability, business continuity, and things like that. Working with some hand-holding for some of the other parts of the country that maybe are not on the global networks, but are trying to emerge, amidst sometimes challenges and difficulty, some of which were highlighted around power, access to the internet, and so on. But below that, we're also working, or above that, at some level, we're working also on the big policy ideas. The NITDA has facilitated the development of the Nigerian Innovation is a broad framework of cross-cutting activities across various regulators and actors, to harness and build together that, viable, open, vibrant space. We understand that the industry has operated, has innovated with all the challenges that have been available in the country. I mean, all the challenges, at hand in the country. But the goal of that vision is to articulate the roles, the responsibilities, the ideas, the big ideas that government needs to key into in terms of regulatory, from the regulatory perspective, from policy perspective, to ease and enable and facilitate, the emergence of that robust ecosystem that we intend to see, and fairly, and I would say fairly across the country. I mean, we understand that certain zones would have certain opportunities ahead of others, but then it's important to give everyone an opportunity to plug into the market that Nigeria is and to prepare for the African Free Trade Continental Agreement, which is, at our doorstep. It provides us this huge opportunity, but we need to be prepared. We need to understand our roles within the services ecosystem. We need to understand the modes of supply. We need to, for the components of manufacturing, understand the clear rules of origin. How would we take advantage of this opportunity, issues around investments, intellectual property, just build out that entire gamut, of knowledge and if you like, a compendia of resource so that we can support what's going on. I must also acknowledge the great work being done in Lagos. Lagos is, our Yabacon is there, our Silicon Valley. The Lagos, you must give a lot of kudos to the Lagos state government for just its, it's been quite brave. It is also the vanguard for supporting the ecosystem in Nigeria. So we intend going forward to work more, across those type of relationships without intervening too much in what is going on, within this space. Prior to now, we've organized competitions, incentivized sometimes with money and so on, but we've quickly recognized that working with the stakeholders and incentivizing different touch points within the ecosystem is really the way to go, and being able to build those partnerships across, the entire country, and responsibilities to support the ecosystem to thrive. So essentially, that is, the approach. On one level, going below the ecosystem, on another level, going above the ecosystem to create this, this situation that allows, the ecosystem to even grow larger and just bake a bigger pie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, Kasim, from NITDA. We have over 50 participants already, and they cut across not just Nigeria, but across Africa. So what I can guarantee you, if you're watching us right now, is be rest assured I would ensure we get the best out of these participants, our panelists. So respect to all they've been saying. To lay a foundation for why we are here, we know COVID has come to change the game for good. And so it's important. I just saw a survey recently that 1,000 startups were surveyed and were interviewed across 50 countries, including Africa. And the survey came back, according to a report, that about 43% of the startups are already in the red zone financially. And the conclusion of the survey is, if things still go the same way they are for the next 3 months, 3 out of every 10 startups will phase out in Africa. That's what the survey has to say. And so the reason why we have such important panelists is to help us see what interventions they will be able to provide to be able to cushion startups, post-COVID, and to ensure that the story for African startups is different. So that's why they're here today. And so we'll jump straight into the juice of the day. And I would go, I would like to, put ladies first. On easy lies the head that wears the crown. Lagos State has been doing so much. The tech ecosystem is very vibrant. There's so much to do beyond the fact that we have the likes of the Flutterwaves of this world, Paga, the Jobbermans. There's still so much to do. And I'm sure many startups right now are probably also expecting that one day they would also become the next unicorn from Nigeria. And so Tosin would like to know exactly from some of these interventions that you've mentioned, critically, if you could just dip into two particular ones and tell us what are the criteria, what are the resources available for SMEs or startups who are listening or watching right now, and how they could tap into those resources that LSETF has for them.
Okay, thank you, Abiodun. My internet connection is pretty low, so please let me know if I'm staticky or anything. So in terms of, I'll talk about what we have and what we're thinking post-COVID. So what we currently have, and I'll start with Lagos Innovates since it's a startups, audience. What we currently have, like I said, is the infrastructure programs. Now, before we even started Lagos Innovates, we did some sort of research. So we sent out surveys to employees of startups, to founders, to accelerators, to co-working spaces as well, just to find out what their pain points were. Can you hear me? Because it's like, can you hear me? Okay, just to find out what their pain points were. And from the survey, there were 4 main pain points. So the first, infrastructure; second, talent; third, capital; and the fourth, mentorship. Now on infrastructure, startups complain that, access to broadband internet is expensive, power is inconsistent, and real estate, just getting an office in Lagos, for example, is expensive. And we then thought, okay, so how do we address this problem? So we designed 2 programs. The first program is a voucher program, which gives startups vouchers to go to any of our 31 co-working space partners. So we did not go and build our own hub and say, everybody, just come to the Lagos State hub. We wanted to support and drive demand to the already existing co-working spaces. And we have like 3 categories of vouchers. We have a voucher for people in ideation that pays for their space for 3 months. We have a voucher for people at proof of concept that pays for their space for 6 months. And for people that have achieved market validation and are now selling and have a bigger team, we have a voucher that gives them an office for 12 months. So that means that for that 12 months, you don't have to worry about paying for rent or paying for security or meeting rooms or paying for like internet. You can use your resources to do other things such as marketing or hiring more people. So we then thought, okay, so we're driving demand to the co-working spaces, but how are we helping the co-working spaces expand or build new locations? Now, we all know that accessing capital in Nigeria is very expensive. If you go to a bank, for example, you're looking at from 25% upwards per year for interest. Now, startups and hubs cannot afford that. So we have a loan program for hubs that gives them access to 50 million naira for 4 years at 9% per annum, which is still significantly lower from going to commercial banks. And even beyond that, we're not asking for physical collateral, apart from the fact that you can show that you can repay the loans back. And we have one beneficiary. We gave Lead Space in Yaba. We gave them 30 million naira for them to open a new location at the Tejo Show Mall. So those are the programs that we have that's addressing infrastructure. Now, in terms of talent, we have 2 programs. So people complain that they don't have access to talent. They're interested in tech skills, but they cannot afford it. So we had 2 programs. The first program is in partnership with Honeywell Group. It's called the Lagos Innovates Talent Development Program. Now, what that program does is it pays for your training upfront. So it pays the training partners, and then you then go to, you do your training. It gives you a 2 months moratorium period for you to find a job, and then you pay us back. So it's a student loan program, and it's a program that we're currently testing. We actually just finished our first cohort of 18 people. I think it was the 1st of March. And unfortunately, with this current crisis, it's a bit too soon to then assess the impact, because my training partners, it's their job to ensure that these people get placed in jobs, but then they can't really do it now if we've been on lockdown for like 7 weeks, and now some people are not even back at work yet. But that's one program that we're addressing people who cannot afford to pay for tech training. Another program that we have is in partnership with IBM. Now, IBM has a program called Digital Nation Africa, which is like free training on IBM Cloud. And anybody who has a laptop, who has access to data, can easily go online and take any of these trainings. It teaches you how to use a computer. It's that basic. And then it goes on to like intermediate, and then even teaches you how to build a website on IBM's platform. And so we were very happy with the program, but then one of the things that we thought about is the fact that some people don't have access to computers and don't have access to data. So how do we get this training across to them? So we partnered with American Towers Corporation. They provide infrastructure in Nigeria. And for their CSR, so in different local governments in Lagos, they have like a center that comes with computers, it comes with security, and it comes with internet as well. So they gave us a few of these centers, and we pretty much just put our staff there, and people in that community, people in that local government can then go in and take the IBM trainings. And the good thing about the IBM training is that you get a badge once you're done with the training to show that you've actually been certified in this course. And we actually had one success story of a girl who took the training in cybersecurity and applied to school in the States to study cybersecurity and got a scholarship. We've also seen that it's also proved to be a very good after-school program for people who, they finish school early, and, instead of like getting into trouble, they just go into these centers and then take the courses. So that's how we're addressing talent. On mentorship, we have a mentorship platform where we have mentors from the ecosystem, and then people who have ideas can then go on this, onto this platform, put in their ideas, and get paired to a mentor and work with that mentor. One of the feedback that we got before we even started that program was that people don't have access to successful entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. So most times, sorry, it's frozen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So most times, people go to events trying to meet people, trying to meet successful entrepreneurs that can mentor them. But then they say to me that, Tosin, after the event, after they finish speaking, these guys just run away, and then we don't have access to them, and then we don't know how to approach them. So that's a really good program, putting these mentors out there, and they have to accept if they want to work with you or not, which is nice. So it's still the mentor's choice. And then lastly, on capital, again, we don't invest directly, but we do a lot of matchmaking for startups. Now, because we have a pipeline, a lot of investors reach out to us, and then we match make them. So that's what we've been doing before COVID rather. We've supported 127 startups with our voucher program since we started. We've given one loan to one hub, and then we have trained 18 people in tech skills, and I think 3 of them are currently working. And then we plan to open that program again, the talent development program, very soon. Now, post-COVID, a few things that we're thinking about. A lot of our startups have reached out to us again on what their challenges are. And it's the same 2 ones. You want people to work from home, but we don't have consistent electricity, and internet is expensive. My internet is even very unstable now. So as much as we're pushing the work from home narrative, we have to understand that a lot of people are not equipped to work from home. And that is why we think that at some point, eventually, people are going to go back to the co-working spaces while maintaining social distancing, because it's just not, they can't afford to work from home without the right infrastructure. And so what we're doing is increasing our vouchers for the workspace voucher program. So usually they have to pay like a token depending on where they go. So if you go to co-working spaces in Victoria Island, for example. That's more expensive than if you go to Yaba, but we're increasing, right? And then we're also ensuring that we have more mentors on the platform, because people now have more time and want to give back during this whole crisis. And it's very important that we tap into that and ensure that we have the right people on our platform. And in terms of the hub loan program is still going to go on, and we're still going to give funding to hubs for them to expand, because post-COVID, we see a lot of demand going to the co-working spaces, because corporates will also take advantage of this.
Yeah.
You know, corporates might say, yes, don't come all the way to Ikeja, but if there's a hub, you know, around your area where we're willing to pay for you to work from there, you know, that way we're still maintaining social distancing, and we're not having like 100 people in one office. And then lastly, the talent development program, we're looking to take that completely online. But another thing to think about is, if you're going to take it online, then you have to think about, you know, infrastructure again. Some people don't have laptops. Some people don't have data, you know. So as much as you want to offer all these programs online, you have to think about our own limitations and be realistic with them.
Thank you so much, Tosin. Beautiful insights. We're going to get back to questions. I can see some questions already popping in. So we're going to make room for Q&A session just after we have other remarks from the panelists. Thank you once again, Tosin, for that beautiful insight. Just also, commend what you're doing. I noticed that on your website, you actually, listed the beneficiaries for the workplace vouchers, their names and the companies.
Yeah,
I saw
transparency.
Yeah,
transparency.
That's commendable. So if you want to go dig and ask for impact, their names, their companies, go ask them if we made an impact or not. That's very commendable. Thank you so much. Just to also add that the ambassador would not be staying till the end, and so she'll be leaving very soon. But a very senior official of the embassy would be available at the end of the event to also give some remarks. So thank you, Your Excellency, for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So have a good deliberation. Bye-bye.
Yes, and to also mention that we're still going to be having Uyoyo from the African Development Bank join us before the end. She's on a very urgent assignment right now. I will dive into the next panel. Mr. Kasim from NITDA. NITDA has been playing a very crucial role, like he has outlined. We know already that NITDA supports even startups from Nigeria to attend global events and get more exposure and sponsorships. Examples are the GTEx 2018 that happened in Dubai. But recently we saw on the news that a 10-man committee was instituted by the DG of NITDA to allow SMEs and startups and young entrepreneurs in Nigeria to have some form of cushion. Would you want to shed some light into what these resources are and how our viewers can tap into these resources beyond COVID?
Thank you, Abiodun. Like you rightly mentioned, we saw a scenario where, because of the COVID challenges with the COVID-19, clearly we saw that certain aspects of our economy and national life were in free fall. We see already that the economy is getting depressed, and then the startups are not left, in that challenge. We hope that this will not be for too long, as the country, the SMEs and the government has to digitize, so we're hoping that primarily, that digitization and being able to take your services online will be critical in the survival of startups and innovation teams around the country. They will therefore need to adjust and calibrate their products and services to also take advantage of the opportunity that is opening up, because of this black swan, absolutely unexpected. But then again, it opens new windows and vistas for other challenges. But having said that, NITDA, the Director General, and in partnership with key stakeholders in the private sector, particularly those who are driving hubs, the angel networks, and a few other notable fellows, we put together a tech for COVID, if you like, an emergency committee to look at what areas can the government provide cushion for the challenges that are directly affecting this ecosystem. Ironically, before now, we tried to see how we could begin to step back from intervening directly and just be more strategic and sort of stimulating and supporting the ecosystem instead of competing with hubs or competing with Lagos and other ecosystems that are already doing fantastic, work. But I mean, the circumstance has called for a slightly different approach. So we're trying to see that within Lagos, outside Lagos, we also are thinking about there are plans for some type of voucher program to enable startup teams, even for hubs, to support the hubs themselves, to be able to to keep the lights on, really. It's important that we ensure that they keep the lights on because they've become a critical infrastructure, for growth, for innovation, and even for jobs at that level, in the economy. We see also there's a need to support the startups a bit more directly and the development teams. So what we found out is that for tons of the startups who, startup tends to be one term, that encapsulates different types of entrepreneurs and innovators, and sometimes doesn't do justice to just the bouquet and the strata of people and capacities within that ecosystem. We've seen clearly those who emerge from very mature value chains, those who have had significant experience under their belts. They know exactly where to plug. They end up with a Y Combinator or, any of the other, and then they get funding and off they go. But we also have seen a lot of, on some level you might say they're mimicking, but we're also seeing a lot of interest from those who do not have that experience. Clearly the attrition rate within that bunch is high because they don't have as much information, they don't have as much capacity, they don't have industry knowledge and so on. So one of the things we've decided is for those who are coming out of school, entrepreneurship drive, they're zealous about being able to create products. We feel that what they need at this time is to understand value chains and opportunities even better. So we said to them, hold on, let's work and see how we can support you and place you within ecosystems. So it's like a scholarship for innovation, scheme where we're about to roll out. We'll select several startups, young teams, and by young, we mean even youth by age, and experience, and place them. We're sort of saying, hold on a bit, get into, environment where there are tailored programs that can help you understand data sets, understand opportunities, look at cases that have emerged, see why people have failed, and things like that, and understand sort of what do you want to do. Do you have clarity? Do you understand the marketing? Some of the things that, Martin mentioned elaborately during his opening. We're seeing that as a huge component of being able to create this equity, this equitable, fair platform to enable those younger teams, compete. On the other hand, we've seen the central bank has this 50 billion initiative for SMEs and employees, but I led a team that did some work to say it wasn't suitable, just like Tosin mentioned earlier. It wasn't suitable for the technology ecosystem. It's debt, sometimes collateralized, and in many cases they ask you for inventory. You see, it's not angled for innovation-driven enterprises. It doesn't consider seriously intellectual property and so on. We know the CBN has the collateral registry. I think it's called the collateral registry that is supposed to, being able to take things like intellectual IP, copyrights, and so on. But to be honest, it hasn't evolved. It's not mature. So we said to them, we need to discuss and do some more work. Startup ecosystem and the innovation ecosystem around technology has done a lot of, has attracted very significant capital in Nigeria. Is one of those economic activities that is acknowledged. Even from Martin's position, he says, he mentions how it's thriving. But we're saying, look, we need to locally match the capacity, with the kind of resources that will mean that we can incentivize what we're doing. We can't pretend. We've created, I would say, Nigeria's created about 9 trillion naira of intervention funds for various sectors. All debt-driven, unfortunately. Well, some industries will work with, so it's not unfortunate. Some industries will work with debt. But for the ecosystem we're operating, we think that, debt isn't particularly the most attractive model for intellectual property ideas and technology and innovation. So we're going to work with CBN to see what we can come up with. Hopefully we'll have the first meeting in a fortnight while we do all our other intervention programs around the vouchers, around supporting hubs, placing startup within ecosystems that would help them, get information. And then lastly, there's a huge push, even from the Federal Executive Council, to drive digital services of government and SMEs.
True.
So what we want to do is see how we can supercharge and just enable across board so that government quickly adopts technology. We've already started the journey with the Nigerian cloud computing policy. It allows government to use cloud resources within certain frameworks and within a data classification and security framework and understanding sensitivity and access. So there are all those initiatives gradually coming together. We need to really speed up, and see that some of the ideas, come on stream so that we can support some of these startups at this difficult. But it should also be mentioned, we've also seen among certain startups, impressively hiring people and advertising for roles in the last 3 weeks. Wow. So we're already beginning to see the knock-on effect of digitization and driving, it's a rather small subgroup, but it's encouraging and also indicative of what can happen, as we move into the new reality of digitization and digital services. So all these things hopefully coming together, being able to drive them, to some degree, we hope that we'll see a lot of traction and some impact, in the short term. And short to mid-term. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Kasim from NITDA. We'll jump on from the regional level straight down to international level, since we don't have the AfDB here represented yet. Martin, thank you for joining. When you see startups, I know what comes to your mind is how to, like you said in your remarks, you have to get the international scene from day one, go international. That's what you see. So when you see a Nigerian startup, you see Ghanaian startup, your role as ITC is how do we get them to, live from being a local champion to becoming more known, on the international scene. There are few stakeholders here. Some of them are startup owners, some of them are small business owners, and we also have hub managers who are watching right now. How, on the practical level, can they assess the support from the ITC and become international?
Okay, so maybe I start first with telling you a little bit about where we work right now in Africa. So we are active in 10 countries. These are countries in East Africa and in West Africa. In East Africa, it's Ethiopia, Zambia, Tanzania, Uganda, and also Rwanda. And in West Africa, we are active in Senegal, Mali, the Gambia, and Benin, as well as Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire. So in these countries, as you've seen, we've picked countries that I would call tier 2 countries. Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya are these tier 1 countries that attract more than 80% of venture capital flows going into tech in Africa. So that has been a trend for the last 5 years. Last year, it was even more so because we had a fourth country joining, Egypt, but 85% of the funding went to these 4. And then, although the overall envelope was growing, 2 billion last year, I think, according to the Partech report, the other countries were still had to, split the remaining funds. And from these investments, the bulk would go into those sophisticated players that Kasim was describing. So our average entrepreneur, the ones that we are supporting, they are not the Flutter Waves. That's not the companies we work with. Although we are very flattered to have a Safe Border in Uganda with us. Yeah, so this is the outlier. We also work with Touch in Senegal, which is a fintech. But these are outliers. We usually work more with smaller companies, 5 to 20 people that are growing, but are still small and struggling to scale. So they have reached that point where it's about scaling. They have a successful business model. They know how to run the business, but they don't know how to unlock the scale, the next level. So that's where we are trying to help. We also work with less advanced startups, the ones we call in the entrepreneurship phase.
Okay.
So they have a business model that works. They have some theoretical market approval, but it's not confirmed with regular revenues by the market.
Okay.
So these ones, we're trying to help them grow, and we start first with the domestic market for this category, because it doesn't make sense to bring those guys to the international markets yet.
Sure.
For the ones in the growth phase, what we do is look at African markets. So first start with the neighbors. Where is it that you can do business in the region? If you are a company in Senegal, it doesn't make sense to go international and look for business in Uganda. It doesn't make sense. The cost of flying from Dakar to Kampala is more than flying to Europe from Dakar, for instance. Yeah. So we try to get them to look at their regional markets, and not just because they know someone there or here, but by having a structured market research approach. So it's very important that they have a data-driven decision-making process in place. Very often it's very intuitive, and it's like with putting processes in place. They will say, oh, we'll do that later when we are a confirmed company. But that is wrong. We think that they have to start from the beginning. Start with a strong business case today, and a business model, and then put processes in place so that they're able to scale. Because when they start growing, this one or two founder success story, it becomes unsustainable when they reach a moment when they have to be present on several markets and so on. So we try to work with them in this respect. And then absolutely through the local ecosystem with local experts, local trainers, local mentors also, because they know best how business is done in their country. And we try to do the same in the neighboring countries. What we also like to do is to establish synergies, linkages between these startups. So let's say a startup in Ivory Coast and a startup in Senegal, to connect them when they have similar points of interest. Okay. We had Lega Afrique, for instance, in Abidjan. They were looking at the market of doing online registration for SMEs in in Senegal, and so we connected them when they went to Dakar with local startups that could be interested in partnering with them. Because we see that the best way for them to go international is to actually look at a limited number of options that usually don't include a full-fledged subsidiary, because they don't have the money for that. So partnerships are a very important way to enter new markets. So that was the kind of things we were doing pre-COVID. We were bringing them also to events like Smart Africa's yearly event that was supposed to take place in Guinea this year, and we would also go to Africa Arena in South Africa, and other important regional events. We were trying to come to Lagos as well, by the way, but haven't found the opportunity yet, and now we have to put that on hold for some time. But it is important to get these regional African networking opportunities, because the continental free trade arrangement is in the pipeline. It's coming. We know there will be challenges to implement it, and what is important is now that the regional opportunities are materializing. So when in West Africa, for instance, there is a common accounting framework, a common legal framework for companies to register. This is fantastic opportunities for startups to scale at the regional level. And the next frontier here, I think, is on payments, digital payments, fintechs, where you still see that you have maybe 30 plus different platforms on mobile payment across West Africa that have not been integrated, not been harmonized. So these are important areas of work for policymakers that have to take place. So also we would go to Viva Tech with our startups. The ambassador talked about this. We were all very disappointed when that stopped, but this is now on hold. So we tried to, with COVID, to shift gears and move to digital support. There's only so much that can happen right now. We've been doing a lot of webinars and one-to-one coaching through Zoom and the likes. It's giving a little bit of support to the startups, but we noticed that right now they see their revenues going down. They have to put staff on reduced salaries. They have to put staff on partial unemployment, and they are hurting. So our best way to support them is, as soon as the crisis is over, is to get them back into business development mode. So we prepare them for that, help them adapt their business models, and we hope that we will be able to, in the next few weeks, we believe, start locally already. So I think that is what is most likely to happen, is that countries have to open up again just for the sake of business sustainability. Yeah. And so put the emphasis on local business opportunities. And here government is the #1 business opportunity for a lot of our companies. So the digitization that government in many countries hadn't been working on, on a large scale really in a lot of our countries, they understand now, because they just realize, for instance, that their civil servants are not able to work from home. Tosin was mentioning this as a problem for a lot of the businesses, but the first problem we see is that, in many of the countries where we work, it's impossible to talk to government right now. A lot of the civil servants we are talking to, usually they are not available anymore. So there's a big challenge of going digital with these services for government. And then government is also, a catalyst for digitization in the rest of the economy. So right now, the startups are trying to innovate, offer online shops for mom and pop shops, but there has to be a more systemic approach to this. So it's getting rid of the challenges that we see with digital payment solutions, integration across different platforms. There's a need for less bureaucracy. There was a really interesting interview of Rebecca Enochong in The Flip. It's a podcast I recommend listening to. And she was talking about, this first layer doing business World Bank report of improved business environment. But then if you dig deeper, okay, it only takes 3 days to register a company, but to register the company, you need documents that you have to get from 5 different administrations, and a lot of them are not delivered online. So you have all these problems, below the surface that need to be addressed for a real digitization of services, government services. So that, I think, is a big opportunity to support the development of startups. And then we see, for instance, in Senegal, our e-logistics startups are being tasked by government to deliver food support to the poorest in the communities. And so this is something they do partly on a voluntary basis, but they also do it at a fee, and it's government paying for these services. So it's true that government has a really important role to play, and it's true whether it's in Europe or in Africa to reboot the economy. And so the digitization in other sectors, it's where organizations like the ones you've invited can be a broker, the honest broker between the tech sector and manufacturing, retail, agro-processing, and the likes. And that's what we are trying to do also, is to give opportunities for the two to meet and match. But that is, once we are in the recovery mode, and right now the biggest problem is to see these businesses go through the crisis. So a lot of it has to do also with local support. And the ambassador was talking about, what is it that can take place inside the country. Yeah. And that is true when it comes to investment, for instance. So a lot of the international investment, although we hear contradictory information here. So Brighter Bridges is saying it's going up. Africa Arena is saying it's going down. But the reality is, the conversations that had started with investors, they will take longer to mature. And some of the investors also no longer in the countries, or have gone back to their bases in Europe or in Africa, in the US. And so here the role of local business angels is really important. And ABAN, Tommy Davis in Nigeria, they're playing a really important role to get the people who are able to invest in the local economies, in the local tech startups, to start doing so. And so it has been very often still too anecdotal, the kind of investment happening. you know, the amounts are not sufficient to really scale the businesses. They are at the level of the grants competitions that we see happening. So what is more important is that we see investment at the size of what GSMA, for instance, is able to do with the mobile operators. Yeah. And that leads me to the last point I wanted to make is corporate acceleration. Okay. Corporate acceleration and corporate venture capital. Okay. So big companies that are able to invest into startups because they see that they complete their service portfolio. So our role and the role of the intermediary organizations is to make that conversation happening. So in Senegal, for instance, we had 2 weeks ago, my colleague Mustafa, who was bringing together our fintechs and Ecobank. So the local Ecobank team interested in looking at what is the innovation available on the market right now. And that is something we can still do in the current lockdown context. So matching these corporates that are really interested in seeing the development of their sector, whether it's, you know, e-commerce or fintech or educational technologies, and helping them to identify the best of our startups. Because we have a portfolio of several hundred startups, but we know that among those, the ones we want to introduce to the best investors and to the best business opportunities, they are much less. Yeah, so the others still need a little bit of nurturing before they are able and ready to meet with these.
Well, thank you so much, Martin. Interesting insights. I'm hoping this is an enriching discussion for our panel, our participants. So I will come back to Mr. Kasim from NITDA, but Tosin, there are some questions for you here, and I'll probably just pick 3 of them because they're quite related. The first, from one of the participants saying, is LSETF still accepting Hub as partners? And also, how can Hub access the loan? The second question, also relating to what you do, somebody's asking, some of your programs, are they just tailored strictly for startups and businesses in the Lagos area? And the last one I'm going to read now says, what email address should companies contact to get the co-working spaces vouchers?
Okay, I'm going to try and remember all these questions.
Okay, the first one.
Can we do one at a time? Sorry. The first question was, oh, the first question.
Hubs.
Sorry, what? Hubs, yes. So we currently don't have, so our portal is currently closed. All our applications are done online. So our website is lagosinnovates.ng, and you'd see a list of all our programs. And usually when we open a program, it will be open on that portal. Okay. What I'll advise you to do is you follow us on social media. So we always do a countdown before we open our portal. So we'll do like a 5-day countdown just to let you know that the portal will soon open. And usually the portal will be open from 3 to 4 weeks. It might be shorter because we're going to really try and help people post-COVID. But if you follow Lagos Innovates on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, you will be aware when it does open. The Hub Loan application portal will open soon. We're just trying to get all our approvals in order, and then we will look at opening that. What was the next question?
The program you have, is it strictly for startups and businesses?
Okay, yes. So the Lagos Innovates program is for tech startups and innovation-driven enterprises. So we say tech-enabled businesses. So as long as there's some sort of innovation in your business model, so you can be doing sweaters, for example, but say, for example, you're using like a 3D printer, that's some sort of innovation, even though you're selling sweaters. So as long as there's some sort of innovation in your business model, Lagos Innovates will support you, as long as you're also a Lagos resident and your business is not more than 3 years old, so 3 years and younger. Now for the loan program, it's for MSMEs, so micro businesses and SMEs as well. We also have a category called micro startups, and that's for micro businesses or people who are interested in businesses. They've gone through some sort of training, but they haven't started the business. So we will give them a loan for them to go and start a business. So it's very small. So think about people like your hairdresser, for example. You've gone through the training. We will give you up to 250,000 naira to go and buy equipment and start your business. But the employability program is for young people from ages 18 to 35 that are also Lagos residents and are interested in any of the sectors that we offer. So we offer construction, garment making, healthcare, agriculture, hospitality, and entertainment.
Yeah. Beautiful.
What was the last question?
What email address should companies contact to get the co-working spaces vouchers?
Yes, so for the co-working space voucher, I think the best thing is just to follow us on social media and you will be aware once it's open. I think I saw a question on someone that wants to be a hub partner. So you want, I think the person wants his or her hub to join our program. For that one, you would have to send us a letter. What I can do is I can just put my email address on the chat group and that person can send me an email and I can walk the person through it.
Okay, that works. Okay. Are you done, Tosin?
Yes, I'm done.
Yeah, we are honored to have Uyoyo from the AfDB joining late, but better late than never. Thank you so much, Uyoyo. So yeah, the floor is over to, I mean, the room is yours right now. So tell us what you do, and then, let's just just go into the dive and tell us what startups, hubs, and ecosystem stakeholders could, enjoy from the AfDB if there are initiatives or programs that they could leverage upon, post COVID-19. Welcome, Uyoyo.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm so sorry I joined in a bit later. We've been working around the clock for our African countries. My name is Uyoyo Edosio. I'm a senior innovation and human capital specialist focused on the public sector in African Development Bank. So quick things, right, on COVID. For the sake of this, we're still designing some instruments right now targeted at the SMEs. That I am not able to disclose, but very soon I'll be able to share that. I'll share that with Abiodun. But what we have done so far is that, if you can see, the bank has pumped in a lot of stimulus into countries. So we've pumped in about $10 billion. And so our support might not be directly towards the SMEs but we'll be going through their countries to support them, to countries that's the government, to support them to onward support the SMEs. Per country by country, it differs. For Nigeria, there's a huge program going on right now, and I'm so happy to see because from the LSETF, Lagos State Trust Fund, because some of the programs we are about to design, we're in discussions with them. But Abiodun, permit me, because these programs are not publicly made yet available. But in the next in a couple of weeks, our president will be announcing some really exciting packages that we will be having for the countries, and even like SMEs could tap into, and the health sector will be able to tap into. But generally, the way the bank works is that we are unable to go micro. It's not because of our scale. So we tend to work with countries, or in some instances, maybe commercial bank or funds. So, and then through those funds, we'll be able to make financial support available to startups. So what I would advise a lot of startups is, if you're connected to a venture capitalist, an angel network, or you should really be part of a network, because that's how most of the support, not just from the bank, but many DFIs will be coming from. We will be plugging it directly through one of these vehicles. A lot of us, that's the way we typically operate.
Thank you so much, Uyoyo. If you have questions for the AfDB, please just put them. I don't think she has so much time to spend with us. It was really a tough time to get her to come in for a few minutes because she has something very urgent to do. A very urgent call came. Thank you so much, Uyoyo, for still making out time, to be part of this. I would move straight to Kasim, and I'll be making reference to what Martin said. Martin mentioned that one of the things they would require to be able to help startups, get into the regional market or the international market is to work with local stakeholders, and the government stakeholders would be a very good structured platform to give a soft landing. So for SMEs who are in the categories of what Martin mentioned, that they would need so many requirements, and paperwork to be able to get them validated to even be supported by the likes of ITC. What resources or support mechanisms are in place if such SMEs approach you at NITDA to be able to tap into the resources beyond Nigeria and go global or regional? Yeah.
Okay. That's a very important question. We've heard, there's always talk about, Nigeria as a very interesting market, it's a big market. Yes, I mean, particularly for the fintechs, for some of the other technology guys but the truth is that it's still largely an informal market in the country. It's quite rural outside certain pockets of Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, certain places. There's a lot of informal trade, and so we would have to also learn and mimic, and it's a diverse, sort of country. So we'll have to learn from the experiences of Martins and Co. and how they've prepared, those micro businesses. Some of the principles are quite applicable in especially for startups and scale-ups that are outside the nerve of, if you notice, you see that the guys in fintechs have done well. There's somewhat mature banking space, and it's easy to plug in their frameworks, their sandboxes you can use, and things like that. It isn't necessarily the case for many other sectors of the economy. I mean, telecoms is one thing, but we need to do more of this formalizing and understanding just what the drivers are, across the spectrum, and understanding the tapestry of the country, the difference, and what needs to happen in terms of being able to prepare startups to plug into value chains that are not only local, but are quite regional. I mean, if you look at the spend from the perspective of net spend, you really need to be regional businesses to make sense. And then help, as the government formalizes, and then there's increase in wealth, per capita production, there is increase in, household incomes. It becomes quite easier for you to also project into local markets, and just think about, growing organically or, that way, in that sense. So we need to borrow a leaf, and some of us are beginning to articulate that in the country. I say, listen, let's not get carried away by these huge stories. What are we doing in the other parts of the country? Just being able to drive and support just e-commerce infrastructure, for instance, in certain parts of the country, I mean, will be huge for opening up, electronic channels, bringing people into financial inclusion. We have only about 30-something million people who are banked. For people who are banked in Nigeria, only about 2% of those have real disposable incomes. So it's a huge challenge, for things that need to happen within the ecosystem. But then also, as Martins has mentioned, the AfCFTA, I keep going on and on about it, about why we need to be prepared, to take the opportunity for Africa to reach out to other markets, to allow people to have access to our markets and reach out to other markets, to provide services and then create products. Because the real opportunity for Africa is that, and we're in an analogous space across Africa, even from the RECs outside of the regional, economic, communities and so on. We have, similarities, there are quite some differences, similarities where products developed in one market will be able to, with some tweaking or partnerships, you could enjoy, access to other markets. Martins elaborately described some of the models that can work, So we're also deliberately, and I'm leading that initiative for NITDA and for the sector. We're beginning to develop sort of our workbook, our tools to understand how do we, as a service, as part of the service industry, how do we position tech-enabled and innovation ecosystem to take advantage of opportunities across Africa, learn from their counterparts, find access to markets in other business, and also conversely, a huge part of the conversation, allow other innovators compete, favorably in our market. These things are not without challenges, but then this is sort of the perspective, we're looking at it. Another is, I'll quickly say that, you know, there's capital not only comes with money, it comes with expertise, it comes with information, it comes with a knowledge of the local environment, which is also necessary. It has its importance for intellectual property, you know, because local capital will mean, you know, we're able to build more local companies that with global appeal, that with local intellectual property, and then you have, you know, cash flow and so on coming into, you know, revenues coming into the country. It helps our FX positions, you know, and all whatnot. But the truth is, we need to develop our own sustainable capital pots. You know, the grant model, you know, sometimes I say to shockingly, you know, I say that the enemy of our ecosystem is grants. It's not completely true, I must say, but when I put it like that, I like to put it in a jarring way, so that we understand that it's competitive money in some sense, and then it must be taken seriously. And then we need money to be able to deploy into market, go to markets, not some freebies that mean people are, you know, they win this, and what do? They can't really even build and scale products, you know. So we're advocating very strongly for a fund of venture funds as a national approach. We do not think a single fund, you know, is where we should go. We should try to do a fund of venture funds so that we can operate at different strata of the economy. We can stimulate, you know, the guys in the venture capital space, because they actively develop the pipelines. They are the ones who go and look for entrepreneurs and make the deals. We want to encourage emergence and sustainability of local venture capital, so that when they go international, they don't go cap in hand. They go with some local capital and go to attract international capital, and so that we have that synergy, you know, to as best practice. We also are looking at ways to be able to stimulate accelerators, those who provide, you know, Series A of different kinds. You know, we need to also be able to, where necessary, provide grants to. Can you still hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Provide grants to, you know, we prefer talking about grants to hubs and being able to support these hubs that support development at scale. So the consideration for us has to move at some level to scale, and other parts of the country where you need to go below and build some kind of support so that you can create opportunities, you know, and products can come on stream from different parts of, you know, the country. So it's a multifaceted approach. So trade, looking at all the opportunities around international trade, looking at capital, being able to help the formation of capital for the purposes of, you know, local entrepreneurship, developing the entire strata, the spectrum of activity, you know, in the ecosystem, and then being able to, you know, consolidate on some of the opportunities, you know, that are available to really formalize the economy as much as possible. That's where the huge task is, so that we can have access to markets that are, you know, contiguous markets that can help the development of business and, you know, real growth and revenue models, sustainable revenue models.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for the insights. Down to Martin. I'm not a NITDA and I'm not a Lagos State agency. I'm an ESO, entrepreneurship support organization, or I'm a support structure. I have an incubator, an accelerator, a venture fund, and I would like to make a soft landing for ITC. I would like to work with ITC to help them sieve out top ideas from the 10 countries you mentioned, you know, from Togo, from Mali, from Senegal, or from Nigeria. How do I work with ITC?
Yeah, so as a company, if you are in one of the 10 countries, the best thing is to get in touch with our local partners. So we have in Uganda and in Senegal, we have a team on the ground. I mentioned Mustafa for the startups and Diabel, who is taking care of the SMEs. In Uganda, we have John, who is in charge of the startups, and Richard, the SMEs. In other countries, we have partner tech hubs with whom we engage, and we have the team covering each country. So myself, for instance, I'm covering Ivory Coast out of the 7 others, and the Gambia with a colleague, Haifa. So each one of us, you can reach out to us, get in touch, and say, as people do through LinkedIn, for instance, say, I've seen you are active in, for instance, Abidjan. I'm doing this kind of services. I've seen that this is what you are rolling out in the country. We would like to partner with you. It's that simple. And amazingly, very often people don't do that. You know, this basic homework of going onto the website of the ITC and looking at what is it that these guys are doing in my country. Instead, they just say, I'd like to partner with you. And then, you know, it's one of the emails that you get and you don't know what to do with them. But very often we also go through these partner hubs in CK, for instance, at the Innovation Village in Kampala, and we ask them, so with whom should we work? You know, because it's very important that we get the right partners on the ground. And that's especially important when you want to, you know, maintain a good reputation on the market, because there's a lot of offering around, but not everyone is serious. So we want to make sure we don't work with the wrong people. And batches, we don't do short batches of 6 months or, you know, the usual acceleration cohort. We try to really work in the long run with the companies, because we see that's where we get the best results. We get the best results when we work for them for 2-3 years. It seems counterintuitive, but if you look at the biggest success stories in this tech space, they haven't become global players in 2 years. It took Amazon more than 10 years to become what they are, and it's the same thing for others. And look, even Jumia, for instance, they're still struggling to make it big, you know, or Andela, who are very active in Nigeria, also, I understand. And despite all this massive funding, it's hard work. So imagine if you don't get this kind of funding that they get access to, the time it takes to grow. So we want to see them, we want to be with them through a longer period of time, because then it's also, when for us it's best we can showcase the real impact of our work. The startups, in terms of job creation from the cohorts we work with, they are not big job creators, because they tend to be, you know, small, and every job is a cost unit that they have to see the income for coming in. And so we see more jobs coming in with the SMEs, the IT and BPO SMEs. So here we're not talking about tech innovation, fintechs and the likes, but you know, the borders between the two sometimes are very blurred. An IT company that develops a new product for the enterprise market, for instance, and starts selling it, the same product could be pitched by a startup. It could be an accounting software, for instance. You could make it a big startup story, but a lot of those IT companies have been doing this kind of work for a long time, and it's just product placement on the market.
Very true.
So they have been around for a long time. They're also, you know, better equipped to survive crises like these here. So we try to work with these guys as well. And this is when we look at Senegal and Uganda, where we also work with SMEs, we see that this is where the biggest numbers are coming from. So yes, it's very important to support young entrepreneurs and to help them and to have this whole network of tech hubs around them. But it is also important to work with the IT companies, the outsourcing association, and the people who are looking at, you know, just classic internationalization of business. So yeah, this is what I wanted to share, although it's more than what you've asked for.
Thank you so much. We're rounding up right now, and I would just like to go through the chat if we have some questions. So there is one here for Tosin. Are there specific funds related to education startups? If you know some, please share with us.
Specific funds?
Yeah, related to education startups. Education, yeah.
I don't know of any funds that are directly, so only if, I mean, are they talking about like investors that are interested in education?
Yeah, I think he's trying to look for a sector-specific fund, but I think if
yeah, I don't know of any sector. I would just say if you're just on the lookout for like grant programs, I know a few of them. I think I think there was one from MasterCard Foundation a while back that was specific to startups. So a lot of times, LSETF cannot access a lot of the international grants because they're actually tailored to private organizations that look after startups or to the startups directly. So I can't think of any. I mean, I would say like follow Tech Cabal, for example. So Tech Cabal, they curate a lot of information on startups. Okay, yeah, someone's saying Ingenie.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ayo. Ingenie is actually good. One of our startup beneficiaries actually got the went for the Ingenie accelerator. I think they get like $50,000 once they're done with it. So yeah, it would be to just, I think, follow like news outlets that curate support for tech startups, so you can know when they do happen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ayo. I'm sure Ayo is the CEO and founder for Loyster, one of the high-rising startups in Nigeria.
And he's our beneficiary.
Yeah, oh, great! He was part of the panel.
Beneficiaries.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ayo, thanks for that information. Thank you so much. So we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up right now, and then I'll just want to go around and ask each of the our panelists to give one last word, and then we'll get the final remarks from a senior official from the embassy, and then we'll call it a day. So I'm going to start with Tosin again. Any last word for?
So my last word to startups is just that this will pass, and I would just advise you that you focus on profitability as much as you can. I'll advise you that you shrink cost, which can be painful sometimes, but it has to be done. I would also advise you that you take it easy with growth, especially because this is an uncertain time and you want to conserve as much cash as possible. I think what we've been telling people is, if you can have some sort of two-year runway from now, because we really don't know, when we're going to get a vaccine. Are things going to change? And, unfortunately, for some sectors, they might not recover post-COVID. And so it's time for you to think about pivoting depending on the sector that you're in. So it's just to ensure that, you guys are safe, your employees are safe, but then, you also might have to make some really hard decisions and to start having those conversations early and to start looking at your business model and your financials again to see what you can afford and what you need to cut back on to save cash.
Very, very salient, very salient. Kasim, any last word for,
Thank you again. Thank you for the opportunity, Abiodun. I'll just say quickly that I think that we need to focus together with the startups and all the players in the ecosystem to see how we can get our businesses, our government, government digital service, and businesses digitizing and taking advantage of cloud environments, very critical. You can shrink infrastructure cost. You can manage a bit better. There are so many tools available to deliver your services seamlessly. We're not always happy when we hear, the Nigerian government is nervous when we hear businesses say cut costs. And when it also means fire a few people. Or just, oh my God, we're about to pile on these numbers again, But it's a reality. It's a reality. But we think that if we're able to quickly turn around having our businesses come online, come on stream and take advantage of, the electronic media and models, and the business and the startup ecosystem, the innovators, again, spend time developing products and services that can operate simply, they can deploy easily from cloud environments. For instance, I'm actively working on a digital marketplace for government. Wow. What will happen simply is, what we're hoping will happen, and the conversations are ongoing, hopefully by the third quarter, by the fourth quarter, we should see some traction. We want government to sign up to digital services without elaborate procurement processes, as on pay-as-you-go model, so that, we support as many, startups who have products and services to sell, to government. We also hope that, the private sector and the innovators take the cue. And I'll also mention that our cloud policy document did something quite interesting. We said, look, it focused on government being able to use the cloud with certain restrictions. But then we said, we created one major exception. If you're an SME, you're an innovative SME, you can operate from global cloud environments and provide service to the government without having physical offices. We're no longer interested in your physical offices. You know, if you're in the cloud space, you have a model that works. You know, we understand your product, you know, and just sort of your business continuity issues are well sorted out and clear. You know, we will use what we call framework agreements so that there's a pay-as-you-go model. You know, any government agency can use your services. The challenge now is being able to find the money and the budgets to support government to go online and use and adopt technology to drive. You know, this has to happen. It has to happen.
Yeah.
You know, some of it is a bit unclear because of, you know, government is reeling from the effects of COVID. I'm just wondering how to approach it. But eventually, where we want to go is to see that, you know, we get innovators to think about products that are fully digital. We're seeing that, and then think about also how to aid the informal sector, you know, provide services, you know, online, even in communities outside Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. You know, these are some of the challenges. I will also mention quickly, we know there's law enforcement and our tech community have not had the best of times. You know, we're also we're intervening. It's a bit tedious, but we're creating that fora, and a few other initiatives will be rolled out to see how we can create that understanding, you know, so that while they deal with cybersecurity issues and, you know, that, you know, online the crime, you know, that seems to be also festering, there's also some trust being built with those who are doing quality work, you know, to support the environment. So again, thank you, Abiodun. It's been a fantastic session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Martin, last words?
Yeah, so there are people who thrive in adversity, you know, so they see a challenge, they turn it into an opportunity, and we see a lot of the startups we work with doing that right now. So yes, many of them struggle, many of them are going through a very hard time, but when they are not in the right business, not in the right segment, we see them pivoting already. So we support them in adapting their business models. And they have to remember, as everyone said, this is a digitization booster.
Yeah.
So it's going to accelerate the digital transformation of the continent like it is doing in the rest of the world. And so that's a fantastic opportunity. And so our companies here, they are in the right business for that. The sectors, you know, health technologies, supply chain management, enterprise digitization, e-commerce and e-logistics, fintech, these are all areas, educational technologies where it's really growing. And so here, I think I would also tell the founders that are in the audience, two things. If you are in a business that is going down, try to adapt and seek advice on how to do that. So get coaches, mentors from all these structures that are around you to help you with adapting your business model. And if you are in a sector that is taking off, that is booming right now, like e-commerce or edtech, also take advice, because you will risk burnout. You know, we've seen it from a number of our entrepreneurs who are in these sectors. They work now 7 days a week, and the risk is that they run out of steam, you know, although the opportunity is fantastic. So I think we also, on our end, in this crisis management, what we need to do is also advise them on how to handle the pressure of this sudden growth in their business. So yeah, hopefully we'll get through this very quickly. If not, you know, if it's coming in waves, as they're telling now, we will adapt. That's what we all do.
Adaptation. Thank you so much. And we have joining us right now to just give a closing remarks representing the Ambassador of Nigeria to France, Mr. Dalami Ibrahim. He heads the economic desk at the embassy. Over to you, Mr. Dalami, closing remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Abiodun, for putting this panel together. It's been an engaging session. Thank you very much, Martin, Tosin, Kasim, and Uyoyo, who joined us briefly. Like the ambassador started out, we have a crisis, but we also have opportunities and ideas that can continue. And I think what all of you have brought to the table tonight has been a message of hope amidst despair. I think for the startups to know that the institutions, whether at the international level, at the national level, or at the state level, are solidly behind them, I think that will spur a lot of people on. And when you think about startups, you think about services, you think about the lives they touch. Yeah. So I think as far as humanity is going to continue, it's an opportunity for anybody with an idea to contribute to society. And at the end of the story, when we talk about COVID-19, for some people, it will really be a story of renewal and a launch pad for them to bigger things. So thank you very much. It has been an engaging session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dalami Ibrahim, Head the Economic Desk at the Embassy. I want to say thank you to all our participants, the last men or women standing, because some left before the end. Quite a rich discussion. Thank you so much, Tosin. Thank you so much, Mr. Kasim, NITDA. Thank you.
Sorry, Abiodun, can I just ask that the panelists share their email address with the panelists, just so that, you know, we're not all working in silos and there might be opportunities for collaboration in the future, and just sharing information and sharing ideas and updates. So I already shared mine to the panelists, so if you guys don't mind.
Yes, on the panelist session, please. Just also mention that the most important takeaway for me would be that this engagement leads to collaboration. I already saw, you know, links while Tosin was speaking, and Kasim, I said, okay, Martin, here is your answer. We need you in Nigeria. So once the lockdown is over and there is room, you know, beyond social distance, and we can gather together, I'm sure you're welcome to Lagos, and definitely you'll be able to also have some Nigerian jollof rice. I'm sure you've been hearing about that. And I can tell it's better than that of Senegal. We're not going to that world tonight, but I can assure you. Yeah, so somebody sent a message here also, and it was saying, thank you, Abiodun, for the last webinar we had, which was before this. An idea struck in my heart during the session, and because of that, I was able to have 77 leads in my business, 77 leads. And that came as a result of the webinar. So I look forward to more testimonials like this, you know, beyond this conversation, that based on this conversation, we can have a more robust and sustainable partnerships, seeing NITDA collaborating with the ITC and seeing some startups benefiting from what Tosin is doing through LSETF. So thank you all for attending. Thank you so much, participants, and look forward to, you know, catching up some other time. So let's stay home, let's stay safe, and have a wonderful night rest, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.